Hello, everybody. This is Cristiana Eltrayan. We are beginning the 40th conference of the Pranic Consciousness Summit. I'm very happy to be with you, and we have a very special guest tonight. His name is John Gray. Many of you know him. If you don't know him, you surely heard about Mars and Venus and how women are from Venus and men are from Mars, and you've surely read that book. So now we have the author in front of us to describe to us how is that possible. And thank you, John, for being with us. And I really love to hear about relationships tonight and how to heal them and how to harmonize, especially couple relationships, because I know this is such a hot subject in these days, especially for the last 2 years that people have been together in their homes for most of their time.
Yeah, I love talking about this. It's such a pleasure also to your audience, because many of them are pranic healers, enlightened type people. I also am in that category. I don't always teach about spirituality and higher consciousness and pranic healing, but it's all been part of my past. People just know me for men are from Mars, women are from Venus quite often. And it seems to be that's my mission, because people need to understand it now more than ever, because some people don't even think gender exists. And, you know, what's really fun is to realize that in our high consciousness, our soul, gender doesn't exist. Our spiritual soul is both masculine and feminine. And then we come into this life to grow into embodiment into the world. So we want to bring the light into the body. You know, so much of our meditation practice for me as a monk for 9 years was pretty much fasting, being in dark room, meditating 9, 10, 15, sometimes 20 hours a day for 9 years as a pure celibate. In my 20s, I was as assistant to the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi back in the days of TM and its popularity. Yeah. So that became a foundation for me to be one with the universe, one with God. But then the next job was how to bring that integrated down. You know, sex is one way to bring it down. Business is another way to bring it down. Service is a way to bring it down. Fairness in business. So it's actually bringing the higher consciousness down through our energy centers. So that means everything that you ignored or repressed or suppressed in order to go up, you now have to face from higher consciousness. And so it's a lot. You know, I remember when I gave up my celibacy after 9 years of chosen celibacy, never ejaculating, never masturbating, but always taking that energy into oneness with the universe. Then when it was time to go out, you know, I couldn't go any further out. It was just oneness. And so then it was like, but it wasn't fulfilling at that point. It was always so fulfilling as I was expanding out more and more. But then I had to come into the world. It was like I felt a mission, a purpose, and coming in, went through kind of a dark night of the soul experience where you face all of your blocks to manifesting that light and bringing light and joy and happiness and love and passion into your body in service to the world. So grounding down. So basically, if you're a high consciousness person, if your soul is ready to embody, the most powerful way is through relationship. In relationship, you're able to face your demons. It's really easy for me to be a monk and love all my students and bless the world, go and meditate and not have to worry about
light all day long. Yeah,
that's right. I could do that all easy. I mean, back then. Now it won't be fulfilling. I have to. It charges up. You know, before this talk, I did about a 4-hour meditation, and to bring my energy up. So, you know, I will give the best presentation. You know, what I find is that when your consciousness rises above the normal average consciousness of the planet, you rise above planetary consciousness, then as soon as you back enter in, it sucks it out of you. So, you know, I always wondered why my teacher Maharishi, he never talked about this, but he said why he still needed to meditate if you're one with the universe. And the reason you meditate again is you absorb all the, in a sense, the negativity of the planet. You absorb it in. You have to keep, I call it decharging it, get it out, and then recharge, fill up again, and send that energy out. And in relationships, I find that the secret there is certainly communication. We'll talk about that, because communication pushes all of our buttons. if we're at a distance and we're not having sex, it doesn't push so many buttons. But as soon as you're having sex, we're talking about experiencing the purity of your soul, where you can be naked with somebody, pure, naked, just open mind. Hopefully you have open mind, open heart, then open body. Oh, as soon as you're that way, you're a child again. This is the radiance of a child that comes out of spiritual people who are anchored and grounded. You see a beautiful radiance, a childlike quality. I'm not a child. I'm a mature adult, 70 years old, but I'm childlike in that my joy and my love and my happiness, my simplicity are all priorities and felt until they're not felt. When they're not felt, then I have my practice to then decharge all of that, because the whole process of being here is to uplift this planet. And when your consciousness goes out, Einstein talked about that. He said his genius came from expanding out and then having to bring that one notch of expansion, in a sense, beyond the collective consciousness, then having to bring it into the collective consciousness. And so we're integrating it. So through our practice, we're actually helping the world, particularly if our intention is that energy come through to the world, but it's also to help our family, our children, our responsibilities, our students, our business. This is what we do, that with love, with happiness, with gratitude, with clarity. And any negativity we own as ours. Okay, now it's triggered. I'm absorbing negativity from the planet, but it only triggers, it comes in to trigger the unresolved, unconscious, conditioned responses from childhood. Anytime you're angry, there's nothing to be angry about. If you're living in a state of grace, if I'm in grace, there's nothing to be upset about. There never is. So all negative emotions are irrational. So we can hold that in our relationship, that I'm upset. You triggered me. That's all. You said something, did something that triggered my stuff. Why do we call that stuff? It's I didn't invent that phrase. It's what you've been stuffing. It's what you stuff. And there's levels to stuffing. There's this sort of superficial level of stuffing, is you have 10 bad things happen today, is what Freud talked about, is displacement. 10 bad things happen today, and you come home and you look at your partner and you become a little bit annoyed by them. My wife, she's had a bad day. It's like you left the lights on last night in the living room, and gets all upset about it. Other times I leave the light on, she's not upset about it.
She doesn't even notice. Yeah.
So that's displacement. That's a very superficial level. But when you've mastered that to a great extent, emotional mastery through higher consciousness, then what happens is you still get triggered. It triggers subconscious conditioned responses. And this is more the primitive. And then if you're processing that, usually good relationship skills can handle that. For example, a classic Men Are From Mars idea is, if for those of you that actually know that men and women are different, and you've been in a sexual relationship with someone of the opposite sex, then these things will come true to you. A lot of, I just gave a talk to about, a bunch of chiropractors, and about Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And a gay woman came up to me and she says, I don't relate to anything you say. I said, because I'm talking about male-female relationships. I'm talking about the yin and the yang. Now, I could give a whole 10-hour talk on gay relationships, but that's not my role. See, it's a different whole different situation. What I look at is heterosexual couples. When you see the divine beings in Tibetan paintings, the male and the female in union together. It's the uniting of the masculine and feminine through relationship, which then allows you to experience that manifestation of your divine male and female coming down into the body.
That's awesome. I want to just bring up the thing that, as a therapist, I've noticed that even in gay couples, most of the times there's a masculine and a feminine dance, even though they are in the same gender bodies. There's always one that plays the feminine and one that plays the masculine, and they were connected to that and embodying that fully, they would notice the energy difference, I think.
Yes, there's an attraction. It's the yin and the yang attracts together. It comes together. So by respect, by embracing the opposite polarities, let's say you're my partner, by embracing and respecting and empathizing and understanding and caring for caring about your feminine needs, the feminine side of you. When I do that, I become more masculine. That's the most powerful thing there is, to anchor in. I'm more masculine with my wife because I respect her, I hear her, I empathize with her, and then I relate to her. See, this is the whole key, is relationships. I relate to somebody who has a different physiology, a different polarity, if you want to be universal here, a different polarity. So I'm relating to that different polarity, which means that I can be in my polarity, and at the same time, I'm connected to the opposite, our complementary polarity. And that coming together is the manifestation of the divine into the physical. And when you do it, you feel ecstatic. That's what making love is bringing ecstasy, bringing the yin and the yang into your body through relating to the opposite polarity and the other person. So once you've done that, now I'm one with her, then suddenly I'm feeling her all the time, connected to me. So now one day she's in a bad mood and rejects me. I have no defenses. It's just kind of like your best friend betrays you, puts a knife in your heart, stabs you in the gut. And of course, they didn't do that. It says, I am so connected to them that their flaws or imperfections, I don't want to look at those flaws and imperfections inside myself. So I push them away and I get all upset. And I have the monkey experience of anger and hurt and sadness and fear until you learn how to manage that and keep it within yourself. If you're a man, that's very powerful. And to process it, not with your partner, to change them. You see, when people get angry, they're trying to change somebody. When people are sad and hurt, oh, you hurt me. They want them to change. It doesn't work anymore. If you're a high consciousness person, for monkeys, it works. They can't communicate. But we have to recognize that when we are triggered, 90% of anything that's upsetting you, 90% has nothing to do directly with what the person said, what they did, what happened. 90%. Now, I've gone to the depths of grieving. I've had so many traumas in my life because, and of course, I never want that to happen. But, having people rip me off, lawsuits, millions of dollars being cheated out of on the physical level, wanting to be a best-selling author for 10 years and being rejected and not being able to find a publisher, writing 25 books, but many books never got anywhere. Persistence, belief, all those things become strength. When life is so easy, you become so passive and weak. So we all have challenges, emotional challenges. For me, I was married before my first wife for a couple of years. She fell in love with another man and left me. I was devastated. At the same time, we were teaching a class on making love work. So I couldn't even teach the class anymore. My marriage had failed. Disaster. How am I going to make money? I felt like a hypocrite if I talked about relationships. So I healed that. And when I healed that, all the anxiety went out of my life. Then I married my wife, Bonnie, my sweetheart of 34 years. And, on our honeymoon, my father was found dead in the trunk of his car. Imagine that. Your heart is totally open and kabang. This horrible tragedy happens. Found dead in the trunk of his car, picked up a hitchhiker. Then my brother, Jimmy, 2 years later, actually a year later, her father had his brain explode with aneurysms and died. Then a year later after that, we were going to funerals every year, learning how to grieve. It was horrible stuff. My brother committing suicide, bipolar, one brother dying of cancer, another brother dying of heart disease, all these deaths and tragedies. And then my mother dying in an accident. These are big blows, but those big blows is a part of being on this world. And I want you to know, if you have big ambitions, you're going to have big blows. That's what it's about. I mean, I hope no more company, but I still have big ambitions. I want to help this world. Right now, this is the biggest crisis ever. It's like gone crazy, nutso. These people are like fanatic, dividing, hatred. If you're not wearing a mask, people beat you up or something. Have you been vaccinated? Are you not? This is such insanity. The hostility, the lack of freedom. But see, all that's about, there's more positive energy coming into this planet, which I know all of you who practice pranic healing and various things have felt, because, I've been doing this for 50 years. And man, in the last decade, just superpower energy coming through me. It's unbelievable. The meditation, the healing experiences, and so forth. Yeah, so greater light, what does it do? It pushes up the darkness. It brings the darkness up. It forces people to realize what fools they are, how stupid they are, the mistakes they make, the irrationality to their life. All negativity is irrationality when you get down to realizing that life is grace. This is a divine unfoldment. So that's a big journey to go on, because as you go higher through meditation, pranic healing, spirituality, prayer, you're going to go high. Then you're going to come into the world. It's going to push your buttons. And the way it pushes your buttons most powerfully is with somebody who loves you, somebody you're having sex with. Why do couples stop having sex? They can't be open anymore. Their communication, their lack of responsibility for their upset. You know, that thing psychology teaches everybody. I love psychology. I love Freud. Of course, we don't agree with everything in the past, but we update it. But the foolishness they're teaching everybody to use the I feel hurt phrase, you know, psychology 101, destroy your relationship, as if when you put I in front of I feel hurt, it doesn't come across as massive blame. We're not talking about little blame. We're talking about massive blame. If you feel hurt, process it with a friend, with a therapist, with a coach, with God. Let it go. Because when you're feeling hurt, you're just in blame state. You're in a monkey state. When you're angry, you're in a monkey state. And when I say all this, I'm not above any of those feelings. I look for those feelings. I process them every day. You know, in anything that can trigger me, I go, okay, I know just what to do. I process it. I have a technique in all my books called the feeling letter technique, the love letter technique, the reflection technique, however you want to call it. It's about naming your emotions: anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, regret, frustration, disappointment, concern, worry, outrage, embarrassment, hurt, scared, frightened. All these are like primal emotions of the unconscious primitive part of us. And boy, you rejoice that I have this negativity, as long as you hold it in the context that this is like a little child that doesn't know what's going on in the world and they're frightened. And I'm the parent. I have to listen. I have to hold that within myself. I have to hear that child inside myself, and I have to give it comfort and ease, but only let in light when you feel the darkness. Let it go, let it go, let it go. So those are techniques, massive techniques. And other people have some good techniques for this too, but just trying to push it down, it will help work for a while. Just suppress, suppress, suppress until you have no passion at all in life. Then you realize you got stuff. And then if you get in a relationship, sex will wake it up. That's why sex is so powerful.
I was going to ask you, why is it different in a friendship relationship where you can go through troubles much easier and resolve them with the friend much easier? And why is it so different in an intimate relationship, in a relationship that involves sexual sharing? Why, you know, people are wondering, why is it more powerful when sex is involved?
Sex awakens a deep need which is stored like for first 7 years of life. We're in a state of theta. And then that state of theta is the same as state of hypnosis. That's how we absorb all of our history. We absorb our parents' stuff and their stuff from their parents, all the way back to monkeys. So we have all these instincts. We absorb all this stuff. And as soon as you get naked with somebody, have sex, at least if you're someone enlightened, you don't want to have sex with a stranger. I mean, why would I want to? Oh, my energy, you know, I want somebody who loves me. So my heart opens, I'm giving myself to them. And if they don't love me back, then you feel like, I mean, this is the crisis in the world, all this masturbation that boys are doing. Now, girls got vibrators and they're doing, this is insanity. When you stimulate those strong hormones and it doesn't come back, the energy you're giving this, all this pleasure and all this love, if it doesn't come back to you, you're empty. That's why people feel so empty after meaningless sex. Afterwards, you go, disgusting. Why did I do that? I can't believe it. And then it brings up all your negativity because sex is primitive part of your brain, ruled by the most primitive unconscious part of the brain. I can't consciously put my penis up. It just happens. But what I can do is consciously put it where I want to put it when it comes up.
Good point.
It's so important. But how you keep that alive, you know, what I'm talking about is something that very, very few people, if anybody in history, has ever done. And that's called sustaining romantic passion. That means great sex, better sex at 90 than at 70, than at 50, than at 40, than at 18. Every day I have sex. I love sex. Sex is fantastic. Of course, the only reason I can do it that way, I know my limitations, is that it has to be someone I love, my partner. Now, when I say my partner is my new partner, after 4 years, my wife died, Bonnie, after 34 years, massive grief and despair, wanted to kill myself. Because it gets down to those the bonding that happens through great sex life awakens the childlike part of you that feels, I need love. And what that was it Freud explained that reason we grieve and is that we bond with someone, and bonding is something called a need integrate. A need integrate means we all come into this world not maybe articulate, self-conscious, but we need love. We need to feel this love. You know, you don't know you need food and somebody gives you food. You go, oh, I need food. Now I know what I need. I need food. So there's a hunger that we have for love and touch and affection and kindness and gentleness and respect. And all this is helping us to find ourselves. You know, you look in a mirror and a lot of us don't know ourselves as these wonderful, amazing people, because the mirror we had in childhood was like one of those circus mirrors that are all wiggly. And so you look into the mirror and you get a distorted picture of yourself. Yeah, a distort. And that's the mirror is how our parents treat us. It's how the world sees us. It's how other people see us at that very formative age. And it sort of sticks unless we learn how to identify it. When your partner makes you feel angry, deep inside, you're always feeling inadequate. You're afraid. You feel unloved. Oh, that's the deeper levels of it. Then you can get in touch with the pain. The pain point is believing the lie. It's fake news. This is what we're going through right now. Fake news. It's so amazing. So much fake news. So many lies. And of course, the whole basis of democracy is freedom of speech. And now we got people being edited, taken off. Yeah, this is horrible. Canceled. This is awful stuff happening. But see, that is the fake news. Say again.
The new inquisition is now, you know, the social media is no longer burning on stake or being, you know, whatever they did to us in the previous lifetimes. Now the social media is what censors you, and you get in some other ways.
Well, we're getting fake news. That's our childhood. We're down to the stuff. You see, this is where, that's why people today, you know, everybody, when I teach my seminars around the world, I used to have been home all the time, and I really like it. But you know, I do these polls. What do you want me to teach about? I've got so many things to teach you about. And they said, we come back, everybody, at least the ones that come to me, they say, I want lasting passion. I want those romantic feelings to last a lifetime. I said, okay, I've done it. I can teach you how to do it. I don't know anybody else who does it, I personally, but I'm sure maybe somebody else is doing it. I know all my friends in their 70s and 75, they're not having erections. They're not even having sex. And ironically, they could have erection with porn. This is one of the dynamics of masculinity, is that if you don't know someone, then you'll produce more dopamine. If you know someone and they love you, you'll produce a lot of serotonin, which will balance out the dopamine. Meaning what that means is newness and familiarity. So how do you keep the passion going? It's polarity. It's as a woman going deep, deep into your femininity. And so I've done in this book over there, right where my thumb is there, Beyond Mars and Venus. Beyond Mars and Venus. I've identified 10 behaviors, qualities of who we are as a soul, which is feminine. And how do I define that? Because people say, oh, how do you define that? Well, thousands of years have defined it, what we consider a woman, but also now we have science. Follow the data. I hate even to say that because they're using data and they're lying about it. But the science is very simple. Every woman listening knows that you have estrogen issues, period cycles, progesterone, estrogen dominance, all these bloating and irritation. All the hormonal cycle is so powerful. It rules everything in terms of this physical body. The hormones, they motivate what turns you on, what turns you off, what we want, what you don't want, what you like, what you don't. So feminine qualities, and I'll just talk about one of those feminine qualities, emotions. Maybe I'll talk about two, emotions and depending. See, women used to depend on men. They don't anymore. So just cut off their femininity right there. So I say, no, depend on men, but for something else. Depend on men to help create safety for you to experience your emotions. And what emotions do women disconnect from? Because emotions produce estrogen. Whenever you have emotions, your estrogen levels are going up. Now, why is that significant? Because if you have a woman's body, whether you're straight or gay, whether you're trans or whatever, if you have a woman's body, DNA woman, what's going to happen is you can measure cortisol levels. Cortisol is a stress hormone. I don't have to give a talk on that. I think everybody knows stress hormone now makes you sick, weakens your immune system, and interferes digestion, keeps you from thinking with your brain, disconnects you from your higher self, pushes you right into your instinctive, unconscious conditioning. That is your cortisol response. And we can now measure in a woman, her cortisol response is always directly linked to low estrogen or low progesterone. So one of those two. Now, that has nothing to do with a man's stress level, except the opposite. Low estrogen for women, when let's just call it female hormones, but low female hormones for women will cause high cortisol in women. And we can't say cause because nobody can ever say cause, but 100% correlation. Okay. So if your estrogen levels are low, you're stressed out. When you're stressed out, you have no choice. You can't let go of negativity. You just can't let it go. You can use it up by eating, by taking drugs, by being a victim, all these ways of burning off energy, but you can't just let it go and feel great. Women get caught up in overwhelm. So many women have this to do and this to do, and they're meditating, thinking about this and this, and they can't even relax. I always laugh when I see the spas, the advertisements for the spa. They look at this serene woman sitting there in meditation. And of course, I know because I've been doing this 50 years, she's thinking about all these things she has to do. She can't relax. This is the modern woman today, cannot relax. Cannot be orgasmic. We're talking about an hour of orgasms. You know, this is natural. Not that every day you have the time to do it, at least a half an hour of orgasms. You know, this is a woman's potential if you have high, healthy estrogen, not too high. It has to be balanced with your progesterone or your testosterone. But here's the difference. For women, it's all about estrogen, low estrogen, high stress. For men, low testosterone, high stress. I'll say it again. For men, the only time men have cortisol responses is when their testosterone is going down and their estrogen's going up. And for women, when they have cortisol responses, their estrogen's going down and their testosterone is going up, or their progesterone is going down, because making testosterone will lower your progesterone. And at certain times of the month, women need to have more progesterone than estrogen. I know I said a lot there. It's called taking me 10 years to figure this women's cycle thing out, to help them understand at every day of the month, they have a different emotional need, how to fulfill that. That's 3 chapters in that book, Beyond Mars and Venus. But, you know, this is understanding our hormones. At least this is opening the door where we recognize men are men, women are women. We've got to get that. So why is that practical? Well, for example, as a man, if I'm stressed, that means my testosterone is low. How do I rebuild? How do I get out of stress? I need to do something that will raise my testosterone. That's it. That's a simple thing. Do something, raise your testosterone. Now, there's 1,000 different things to raise testosterone, which is why there's all these techniques for personal growth. But if a woman does that, it's not good. She doesn't need more testosterone. A man needs more testosterone. If a woman's stressed out,
it happens the exact opposite. They get really imbalanced. Yeah.
That's what she needs. So, you know, if she's got a man teacher, he's going to be telling her to do what's good for him. A woman teacher is going to tell a guy what's good for him. Psychology is feminizing all men. The techniques that you do in psychology, a lot of them for men, like talking about your feelings with your partner when you come home. No, don't. If ever you talk about your feelings, your estrogen goes up. If your testosterone is up and you have no stress, then talk about your feelings. Fine to talk about your feelings. But if you're in cortisol state, if you're stress state, which could be irritation, annoyance, lack of feeling open-heartedness, bored, tired, all of that means low testosterone in men. So what's the answer for that? Well, since you're all meditators, it's what Buddha taught. Forget your problems, meditate, let it go, rebuild your testosterone. Women don't do that. Women can do that if they have plenty of estrogen, then they can go to their male side. But for men, it's always been taught in India for men do the meditation. Some brilliant, great women, of course, can meditate. If they're on their female side, they can go to their male side and experience that balance. But estrogen is the foundation before she can go to her male side without her estrogen going down. So we have to find that balance. So, you know, what do men say to women in relationships? One takeaway just for relationships: your wife's upset. She's not getting the intimacy she needs, which she cannot get. Forget it. You cannot get it when everybody's in the same house. Not going to happen. Men have to pull away. We have, as human beings, we have a need for connection and we have a need for disconnection. And when people can't disconnect, then they have to use anger to disconnect. They have to have fights in order to take their corners. No, we need to disconnect from each other. We need to detach. We need to let go. If you don't know how to let go, then what happens is you create fights in order to negatively get away, in a sense. And even then you're still hooked in because your negativity is coming up.
I'm so grateful that you're saying this, because my vision of ideal relationships is, and I think they are the relationships of the future, or the relationships of evolution, I would say, is when partners can actually take space from each other.
Yes.
And consciously take space from each other without producing the feeling of separation.
Yes. Yes.
Which is different.
That was so interesting.
I love that you say that.
And what you just said is without feeling the separation. So this is the most popular idea of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and the most contested idea by psychology. If you have a man, he needs cave time. Go to his cave. He's got a man cave. And he should listen to Joe Rogan every day too. There, at least you're getting man energy. A guy who goes hunting, kills animals, shoots an arrow, lifts weights, fights, wrestles. This is a man. This is masculinity. Now, I'm not going to do any of that. I shot my first deer. I used to have a rifle and drive around my car with a rifle in Texas when I was growing up. I shot my first deer. I never shot another. My heart said, I don't want to do this. Because I tell you the story. They just hand me a gun. I'm usually good at everything in the first moment because I'm connected. A lot of people are good at things right away. That's because you just haven't done it before. So the spirit just comes through. As soon as it comes through, you're really good. And then your stuff comes up. Same thing with love. You fall in love, all the goodness comes through. Boom, your stuff will come up. When it comes up, our biggest obstacle to handling it, first, we don't know how to handle it. We need teachers to teach us. But second is personal responsibility. Anytime you're upset with your partner, nothing will change if you think you have to change them in order for you to open your heart and feel happy and fulfilled. Nothing can change. It's the first thing. Women all come to me for counseling, 50 years of doing this. How do I get them to change? How do I get them to change? How do I get them to change? I work so hard on the relationship. I do so much. I read so many books, and he doesn't. He doesn't have to. You have to, because you're the one who's unhappy. You have to learn how to be. It's called femininity. One quality of femininity is acceptance, accepting what is. Loving what is. Does a mother reject her child because the child doesn't do everything right? No, it's unconditional love. This is femininity. So this is emotions is one key. So one of the powerful techniques that came right out of Men Are From Mars was men need to take their time to disconnect. And so many women were grateful for that, as long as they knew they were women and men. Once you get women confused, then they're going to be saying, well, I want my time too. I'm in my cave and he always wants to talk. That's called role reversal. That's how far we've gotten, where men come home. I need to complain and talk and argue and fight. If you measure his hormones at that time, his estrogen is soaring, his testosterone is down. He needs to stop talking, take alone time, open his heart, and then come back and listen to her, listening to her, hearing her, and you don't have to agree with everything she says, but try to understand it, be compassionate, empathetic to what she's going through. But I'll tell you, women now, they say, I don't have time to talk. I don't want to talk. What's this Men Are From Mars book? I don't relate to these women who just want to talk about their feelings. That's right. You don't. And that's why you're so overwhelmed and unhappy. You're biologically out of balance. And one of the most powerful things to bring you back into balance is to be able to share your emotions. And of course, if you have positive things, you have positive emotions, but they don't have positive emotions. They're pissed off, they're overwhelmed, they're frustrated, they're disappointed, they're worrying all the time. Okay, start where you are. It's still going to be estrogen if you can feel it and label it and talk about it without trying to change your partner. That's the most important thing. You don't share your feelings about your partner if they're negative. Whatever happened to loving somebody? Oh my God, we're so distorted. If I get angry, I say, okay, I need to take time out and stop talking. And, I teach this to men, changes their lives. And some men say, oh, but she won't stop asking me questions. And I say, just tell her you have to go to the bathroom. And then she says, my wife. I want to say
that. Women feel very hurt. Women feel very hurt when their men stop talking to them without understanding that that's their cave time. That's how they build back their energy, or figure out their feelings, or processing something they don't know. It's called emotions, or whatever is happening inside of them. They need to work that out before coming out and talking to you, ladies. And for fear of hurting you, they withdraw. Actually,
that's absolutely, he's protecting her. What a change it was in my marriage with Bonnie. Was one time I said, look, I need to take a time out. And I went away. And when I came back, I always only come back when my heart's open and give more love. Okay. So I know how to process what goes on. And I'm telling simply put, for men, forget it. Don't worry about it. Minimize it. It's no big deal. Go do something that will put you in that masculine state. You see, when you're in your masculine side, there's no problem. And if there's a problem, I can solve it. So it's no problem. No big deal. I can handle it. That's masculinity. You know, there's a naked man in Italy called David in the museum. I go there. There's a lineup for hours of women wanting to see that guy and his penis. But it's not his penis. But there he is naked. And you're looking at David and he's got a look. And the look is he's checking out Goliath. And he says, I can take this guy. That's masculinity. I can handle this.
Sheer young.
You know, men could do a lot of benefit on Netflix. They've got a lot of good Chinese movies. They show you what masculinity is about. The masters, they never get upset about anything. They always listen. They never interrupt. They ask questions. They're reasonable. They do their practice, and they also have superpowers. So it's quite fun. You know, this is the ones that always where they can fly. You know, this is they have the, you know, there's 8 powers. There's 8 powers. One of them is heaviness, groundedness, but the other one is lightness. I have all these powers, but just we're in a different time. Back then, our bodies were not the way they are now. Lightness is a sense of humor. Heaviness is authenticity, groundedness. Things don't shake you. You know, there's another power is humility. Is, you know, the way that manifests for me is I walk around, I'm in awe of nature. And if I'm not in a good state, but if I see a big tree, I go right into awe. Amazing. It's like a god, gigantic. So that's humility. And then there's confidence. Confidence gets rid of all your fears, anxieties. You know, that went away a long time for me. And then there's the lightness, the playfulness, but you got to get heavy. You got to have groundedness, and you have to be able to hold your emotions inside, identify them. If it's negativity, let it go by analyzing it and expressing it, let it go. So for men, a lot of that is, first of all, before any processing can take place, he needs to first build his testosterone up. You just have to do something you're good at, whatever you're good at. And some things you're good at don't work. Now that would be like masturbation, going on porn. You'll get a relief. You just lost your life force energy. I tell you, men, you're just missing out if you ejaculate. Learn, you know, you have these talks with Montauk. You know, Montauk is one of the guys who teaches this stuff. I don't have a book just on that at this point. You know, everybody does a little differently. I tried Montauk techniques, other people's techniques. It didn't work for me. I figured out my own, which is mine, primarily based upon increasing the feelings of love. It's all about love.
I was going to say that. Yes, that's perfect. Yes. I was thinking to say that because nowadays, you know, all these techniques that Mantak Chia taught and all the other teachers, our bodies have actually changed. The bodies of men have actually changed so much. So it's not only about touching the $1 million point and breathing up and channeling the energy up your spine to stop ejaculating. You have to actually open up your heart and pull that, and that naturally pulls up your energy. If you're a male,
it's about opening the heart. Beautifully said.
Creating a vortex there.
And no control at all. You know, the technique where you suck it up or whatever. I'm fully relaxed while I have my orgasms. You know, it's in one after another until it becomes, you know, 30 minutes of just orgasm, as her body opens up that clings so tight to my penis. You know, this is, it's a mutual energy of pure love, and her having to feel totally safe. Because see, she has to open up and surrender. Very different orgasm from using a vibrator on yourself, just for the extreme of you're doing it yourself. Or many women, when they're trying to catch up with the man's arousal and they're trying to get excited. Should be no trying, letting go. And a lot of sex therapists sort of get at that, you know, which is let go of all your goals. But you have to have goals in life. The goal is to open my heart and feel love and express love and feel love. And the man has to have full control of himself. So when it's like edging. When I get close to the edge, I relax and just feel more love. And then I get close to the edge. And then what you find as a man is the edge is really the end. That's where you're jumping off the cliff. Your body's short circuiting. That's when ejaculation is your body can't handle that energy. Like right now, after 3 hours of meditation, I go through 33 levels of meditation, very clear, distinct experience. I could never just go right to 33, you know, I start with 1, I start with 2, you build and you build and you build. Sex has to be a building and a building and building, and not sex, making love. We're actually making more love. And if you want the passion to last in your life, you have to make more love. And here's an interesting piece of science. But I want to come back to just men go to their cave. What you hit, women so much of the time feel so hurt. It's simply because they misinterpret. They think that if a man is like a woman, then if he pulls away, it's usually he doesn't care, or he's mad, or he's angry, or he doesn't feel safe, he doesn't trust. Okay. But no, men can have, I love my wife, I care about her, I need to take my time. And one time I took my time, I remember it so clearly. And she said, when I came back, she said, John, thank you so much for protecting me from the dragon inside of you. And that was from that day on, I'm so clear. Anytime I can get close to anger is like an ejaculation. I edge, I stay, I have techniques to be able to come back to be a better listener. For example, here's 3 phrases for men. You start feeling yourself wanting to get to the point, or are you feeling blamed, or is this not feeling good, or you want to get defensive, you want to argue back, then you're just like a 6-year-old. Then what you do, that's you're getting close. At that point, you take a moment to relax and begin asking questions. You take charge. You see, always for men, it's when you're out of control, where your testosterone's going down. Testosterone going up is like, I can handle this. See, David is standing there naked. He goes, I got this. I can do this. So that's where you lose. That means as soon as you lose, I can do this, your estrogen levels are rising. Your fear, your anger, your hurt, all that stuff is starting to come up, whether you're aware of it or not. You see, that's where you go to therapists to help you get in touch with that stuff. But basically what you need to do is first, before you ever process emotions, is go build up your testosterone, and then estrogen can start to rise and you feel fantastic processing emotions. You know, that's why anything that bothers me to the slightest bit, I go, oh, I can process that. I go through all the levels of processing emotion: anger, sadness, fear, regret, frustration, disappointment, concern, embarrassment, outrage, hurt, scared. You know, these are all basic primitive emotions that every time I process through, coming back to happy and grateful and what do I want? What am I here in this world for? You know, all in love and pride, self-pride. Look what a good person I am. To be able to process your anything upsets me, I go right through it. And the more you practice it, the faster you go through it. What an ability. Very few people teach this stuff, how to do it, and understand that the person has the higher consciousness is the most vulnerable to this. You see, because that means more light comes, more stuff comes up. You know, when I was in that sort of the big expansion phase of me coming into the world, there's the years of a monk where I was expanding out to become one with the universe. Then coming into the world was the manifestation after 9 years of rejection by publishers and little tiny classes. Then boom, it just opened up, and Men Are From Mars was the biggest selling book of the whole decade. Of all books on the planet, it sold more copies. It was so big. And during that time,
that must have been a surprise, right?
I thought it should have happened 9 years before. You know, I said, hey, I got a great message.
Why it hasn't been so
People would say, even now, people go when they hear I have a TED talk where I'm wearing the red shirt. There's 2 different talks I do. One is fantastic. One is like the worst talk I ever gave. You know what it was? The worst talk I ever gave was to a San Francisco audience where everybody had alternative lifestyles and nobody was married with kids. So the other one is I got an audience, they're married with kids. And so I was going to talk about another book I wrote on ADD, and I just started doing Men Are From Mars because that's what they needed. It's so good because when you have a relationship, then you're actually going to be experiencing your blocks as a man to balance your male and female energies, and a woman will experience her blocks. And we have to take responsibility for our stuff. The man takes his cave time. If she goes after him into the cave, he has to go longer into the cave. If she feels hurt by him going into the cave, that means another source of stress. He has to forget his problems. That's what the cave is about. And then do something that builds testosterone, and not something that diminishes his personal energy, which will be masturbation and porn, drinking too much, too many video games. That stuff will give him the relief, but it's a loss of energy, as opposed to using his muscles, exercising, meditating, doing something constructive, helping somebody, you know, that's not your partner. You see, you detach from her temporarily, not that you don't love her, but you focus on other things. Then you come back to her and your estrogen comes up and you're this loving, strong man. Now for her, see, this is what she has to learn. connection, women need estrogen 10 times. A woman needs 10 times more estrogen than a man. Otherwise, she's going to be stressed out. A man needs 10 times to 20 times more testosterone than a woman. Otherwise, he's stressed out. So what produces testosterone? Good idea. Anything you do that's solving problems and makes you feel confident will build your testosterone. Anything. And then there's certain things that you're confident at, like you can do masturbation or have sex with a stranger. You'll feel great and your life will just keep caving in. There's so much wasted potential of the divine beings coming into this planet. And right now, it's like people always have to go the wrong direction before they realize the right direction, because the right direction takes effort and willpower. And we're all lazy in some sense, at least the males are. So they want to just do what's easy.
What produces estrogen? So how can we've learned how men can become more masculine. Please tell us also about women, how they can become more feminine. Yes,
femininity. Start wearing skirts.
That's a good idea.
Start wearing skirts, wear perfume, comb your hair, put on your makeup. All these things that make you feel beautiful and feminine are really good. Go shopping. Shopping is a really good thing to do. If you spend too much, then it's an addiction. So not a good thing to do. That's the surface level. The surface is also important. Yeah. The power is what women have discovered. In America, we have this thing called therapy, counseling, coaching. Yes. Well, not take coaching to the side because that tends to have more men involved, but just your standard psychological counseling, which to a certain extent, which I don't approve of, it's women coming in and complaining and the therapist going, tell me more, tell me more. Now with my wife, I say, those are the three phrases I want men to remember. Help me understand this better. Now you're back in control. You're not resisting, you're embracing. Help me understand this better. Help me understand this better. Knowing that if you do this, you'll get a big reward at the end. If you do it, you'll be the hero. Next thing, because that's when women talk about their emotions and they get down to their emotions, that's when the big estrogen gets produced. Help me understand that better. Tell me more. What else? Now, women have to know you need a man to be there for you, and it'll be very powerful. But what you will tend to do is throw your negative emotions from the day on him, and that will not work. So you have to practice a new discipline, which women have actually been doing for centuries. When they go down to the river to wash the clothes with the children, they all start complaining. They're just complaining and complaining. My husband did this, or you know what they're doing here, or we don't have any food here. Just complaining with other women actually produces estrogen. Okay, but it's not a super estrogen producer, and it's devastating if you're depending on complaining about your partner to your partner. See, then it's a different thing. Because if you're complaining to your partner, you're no longer just sharing, you're wanting him to change. So if ever I do anything to change the outer world, I'm making testosterone. If I'm just sharing emotions, then what's happening is estrogen goes up. So let me give the example, difference between sharing and complaining. Very important for women to know this, because sharing is estrogen producing. Complaining is a little estrogen and not productive. Kind of like for men, yeah, you're good at masturbating, but not really so good for you. Complaining is not so good for you. But people are lower consciousness.
Down the energy of a woman, yes.
So here you got you need super estrogen promoters because you're way on your male side, particularly a single woman, particularly a spiritual meditating woman. You're very on your male side, but you do have the benefit of loving God and experiencing grace. That's very, very powerful. This is how women survived in the past, is they believed in religion. They believed there was a God. They would pray to God. They feel like whenever you feel I can depend on somebody for help, boom, estrogen goes up. Today, people don't experience God. They don't believe God. They're fools. And so what they do is they feel they're all alone in the world. Well, if you're all alone in the world, boom, no estrogen gets produced. Men actually can become very powerful, but then they become tyrants because they don't experience God. Then they have no estrogen, so they have no love, but they have power. So all of your sociopaths, psychopaths are testosterone and no estrogen. So that's also a reality. So, and yeah, people have to know all those people on TV, they're all paid by, they're all psychopaths. They don't care about you. They care about their fame, their glory, whatever. This is like crazy deceptions, lying so much people don't even know they're lying. People are being fooled. It's a bunch of sheep being thrown off the cliff right now, following the little piper guy. Okay, off of politics.
I was going to ask another
But how do
thing that
women
you
increase
said
their
that
estrogen? I gave a very superficial answer. Now more deeply. There's a technique I teach in Beyond Mars and Venus, also in Men Are From Mars, but more developed in 25 years later and Beyond Mars and Venus. It's called Venus Talk. It's use another woman or use your partner to do this. It's more powerful if you can do it with a man who loves you, but still works with a therapist and somebody else. Now, what this technique does is it creates 10 minutes, 20 minutes, therapy session, 50 minutes, to process your emotions. Now, before I mentioned, in America, 90% of the people who go to therapists are women. Why? Because the therapist is sitting there asking, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, which is great, except that they never teach the women the problem they're creating in their life. They keep thinking, if I can change my partner, if I can change the outer world, I'll be happy and my heart will open. That's not what happens. But they do get some relief, but they never get to the place of, I'm personally responsible for the problems in my life. And I can share about those feelings. So if you're two women in a restaurant, you're complaining about the soup, but you're just talking to each other, that's really not complaining. That's just sharing your discontent. Okay, the soup is too cold. How's your soup? Too cold. Then one of you, the more masculine one, goes, waiter, I'd like to speak to the manager. The soup is not good. And of course, she's doing that. I'm expecting hot soup and a free drink or free something. So that is complaining. Complaining is sharing your discontent with the person you want to do something about it. Like you're holding your signs up in the street protesting. We want you to change. We want you to change. You're complaining. Different from that is sharing. Sharing is not requiring somebody to change in order to feel heard. And that when women are connected to a man, at a certain point, you bond, he will feel the need to pull away. That's another reason men pull away, by the way, is more closeness, more intimacy. And every woman knows you just had an orgasm and the guy turns over and goes to sleep, ignores you. You're kind of like, hug me for a little while. And then there's some women out today, I don't want to hug him. I want to just go. I said, you had a male orgasm. You just ejaculated. That's all your orgasm was, not the feminine orgasm where you just fuse. It's fantastic. And gradually you need to come take your corners again. So anyway, so this tendency for men is to get close. And then as soon as they hit the button where they feel a lot of estrogen, then it's more than their testosterone. They have to detach. So the detachment is, he needs to pull back. And what she does is she goes, oh, but that connection felt so good. Now she's an addict. She has to have more of it. So that's your addiction. I need more of that. I need more. That's the needy woman. She's now demanding him to come back, or she's mad at him for going to the cave, or she goes after him in the cave, whatever, or she becomes a doormat. I'll do whatever you want. Just come back to me. All that psychopathic behavior is simply, she doesn't have the awareness that you're connected to him. Once the connection is made, you have other things you need to connect with. See, she has to have connection with children, unconditional love. She has to have connection with nature. She has to have connection with teachers, new knowledge, parental type people in her life who can guide her. She needs a connection to God. She needs a connection to her body, to her health, to her community, and to the world. Those are all connections. So many connections. And she's complaining, my husband's ignoring me. Are you kidding? You've got 10 people waiting for you to interact with him and connect with him. That's called, not that I would say this directly to somebody when they're complaining about their partner. I say, hey, why don't you get a life? See, the purpose of, you want the passionate relationship. You want the relationship where we're integrating our soul into the world through that relationship. You realize your partner's job is not to make you happy. You're already capable of being happy. That's your job. You have to be happy, both for men and women. Then you're in relationship to grow in happiness. Partner isn't responsible for your happiness, but they can make you happier. So, oh my gosh, I'm a happy guy, but having this talk with you, spending this time with it makes me happier, but I'm not dependent on this to be happy. And to a certain extent I am, because it's one of the needs that I have, which is to be of service. So, and when I go to my cave, I have certain needs that I have to bump up my testosterone. And one of them is just giving a talk, writing a book. That does it for me. But again, we get too attached to getting what we need. we have to realize we're bigger than just one situation. And that's what Freud was talking about, the need integrate. We don't come back to that point. What happens is once we bond with someone, we connect with them, it feels so good. The brain goes through a change, and the change is like a childlike change, which is, I need love, you give me love, therefore I need you. And so now you die and I can never have love again. That's the grieving process. It's a very beautiful process if you know how to do it, because then you get to come back all the way down to that childlike part of you. That's after Bonnie died 3 or 4 years ago. The amount of grief and despair. I mean, I was like a primitive person, wailing for a year all by myself, just like these crazy people in the past used to do. That's because I was down into that instinctive part of me. The bond was so deep. But when I came out of it, the world became glorious, more glorious than when I was a younger celibate. Even then, everything was glorious too. But now I could be grounded, making money, having children, responsibilities, lawsuits, paying taxes, paying bills, buying houses, building businesses, all this stuff, and be ecstatic at the same time. That's a different world. And then, of course, to maintain that, because I very much know, I was telling you before, when in the 90s, when every week there was a stadium of 80,000 people all just were reading my book and telling somebody else next week who did it and did it. My life story is so amazing. When you look at all that success, I never, ever received a positive print article. All people did is said, I'm a huckster, I'm a liar, I'm not qualified, not capable, this is ridiculous, he's a sexist, he's a that. I taught at Harvard, kicked out. Taught at Stanford, kicked out. Everywhere, kicked out by the media, by the print media. Now, the visual media is different. They always like to uplift their guests if they have them on. You never want to bring somebody on and say bad things. You want to say good things. So I did eventually start getting positive video but then in the year 2000, I was canceled. It got too big. The feminists got at it. Oprah loved me. I was her coach on her show 18 times. And the feminists said, how can you do this? You can't promote this sexist. And Today's show immediately stopped. The Good Morning America stopped. All these big shows that I used to do on a regular basis, zip, stopped. I was too big. The #1 best-selling book of the decade. USA Today said one of the most top 10 most influential books of the last quarter century. It was so high. Now, to get there, I just want you to know what happened besides all those little things from the media, whatever. I mean, I was happy, but all my buttons would get pushed. I'd spend maybe 4 to 6 hours processing the emotions that were coming up. I'd sit in my sauna, in my steam room, actually, in those days, and I would just cry and grieve, go through all these traumas of my past, and then go back through them every get better and better so that I could bring up those traumas. Because the whole point is to remember who you were before you had those traumas. See, if you think about any time in your life when you were really, really happy, then suddenly your mind will go, and then it ended. Because we all come in with this ability to be pure love, light, glorious, inspired, and awe, grateful, delighted. This is who we are. And so when you're not that, you're not you. And when you're not that, you should be embarrassed that you're not yourself. And then you're throwing that on your partner. And of course, they're not themselves either, but we can make each other worse, or we can just be responsible for our side of things and then know the skills. So one skill, a few practical skills, how women can be more feminine, is do this emotional processing technique. There's an app. Well, one of my students a long time ago took it and made an app from it. I forgot the name of that app. I just found out about it. Somebody was doing it, but it's in my book. It's called the feeling letter technique, where you express in the Venus talk. The Venus talk is every day, just do a little house, unless you're feeling ecstatic and happy. Which you're
all
not.
the time.
Right. If you're not, process the negativity. You just take somebody, you can do it on paper as well. You can write a letter to God too. But you feel like you're talking to someone. So you're sharing, and you can share with God, or you can share with a friend. And if you're married and you have a partner, you can do this with them. It's way more effective if your partner can do it. And all you have to do is say, I want to talk for 10 minutes. I don't want you to say anything. Just listen to me and give me a hug at the end. That's all I need. I just taking this time to process out loud what's going inside. And so I'm going to say a lot of things, not negative emotions. and then I'll let it go and don't believe anything. Just let it come in. No, that's what my experience is. And like, you can be in a bad mood and a good mood. I'm just letting it go. So then you go through a system here of I'm frustrated, and think about things 2 minutes on frustration. I'm frustrated about this and this and this, but consciously leave out anything to do with your partner. You can't, then now you're complaining. And that subconscious mind will come in and go, yep, he'll change now. He'll change now. As opposed to he will change. He'll understand you. He'll recognize that you are a sensitive being. You are vulnerable and you are irrational and you are overreacting. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is what always will happen. All of your emotions, if you're too far on your male side and you come back to your female side, they're all a little crazy, a little irrational. They're overreactions. So you just simply say to your partner, I'm just going to do the Venus talk, which means it's just these feelings. They're not necessarily logical. And if you try to make them logical, you've just gripped yourself in that state. See, you're feeling angry. Why do I have all this anger? Now you got to find the reason for it. And then you can't let go of it instead of realizing that's your own insecurities. It's your own fears. Anybody who's angry, for example, they're afraid. If you're David standing there, I can handle this. Nothing makes you angry. And if you're always anger has fear underneath it. Always anger has some level of sadness, disappointment, and hurt. How can anything make you angry unless you're disappointed? You had some expectation, it wasn't satisfied. And if an expectation not being met, I thought this was going to happen. If that upsets me, then it's because I'm afraid. I'm afraid I won't get what I want. So there's levels of what we want to go to. So all these people, we go higher, higher, feel the energy, move the energy, go to higher level. Now you got to bring that energy with awareness, levels down, all the way down to embarrassed. Anytime if I say something that's not loving and support, I'm embarrassed about it. Gee, what an asshole I was, what a jerk. And not that I let it go. Okay. Now I have a greater sense of desire to be a better person and so forth. The motivation to grow is there if we can find it, but it's literally like there's a cork holding it all in. So you just take the time to become a master of processing frustration, disappointment, worries, concerns, and then embarrassment. And then gratitude, express happiness, express love and pride. So you balance it and you do that all in 10 minutes. It's amazing. You zoop right through it and your partner gets to see who you are hiding inside. See who you're hiding. If you're in a relationship and you're stressed, you're hiding that pure being of light that came into this world with a purpose and a meaning, with love and happiness. And your partner has a chance to see that in you. And if a man does this with you, he'll see it in himself, because he's connecting with you. That's the way for men to be both masculine and feminine at the same time, is to first of all listen. Listening, by the way, is testosterone. Independence is testosterone. Logic is testosterone. So how do I hold on to logic while I'm listening to my wife process her feelings? Because I know if you need to get back to your female side, you need to let go of all logic. Logic is your male side. Am I saying women can't be logical? Of course they can be logical. And when they're too logical, disconnected from their emotions, then they need to go not logical emotions, but do it in a grown-up way, not a child just screaming and crying and throwing a tantrum. But in a sense, you're giving yourself a little tantrum in the context, which is very reasonable. You're processing emotions. Everybody's had that experience. If you're really happy about something and then the world, and then nothing has changed. See, I saw this so clearly because I can process people. Women come to me, I process their feelings. They're all upset. They're feeling anxiety, or they're feeling depressed, or they're feeling angry. I process their emotions. There's a lot more techniques to processing, but I gave you the basics. They leave my session happy and nothing changed in the outer world. Just get that. Nothing changed in the outer world and they're happy and fulfilled. That means that the reason to be unhappy is irrational. There's no reason. You just have to explore it and let it go. Look at the world differently. And at a certain stage of evolution, you can do that just by suppressing. But then at a certain point, suppressing doesn't work.
I was wanting to ask, I've noticed many men that come to my therapy sessions, they don't even know about emotions. I mean, they were taught to suppress them right from the childhood. Don't be a sissy, don't cry, all that stuff. You were talking about cave time, where you go back to your heart and then you come out and process your emotions. But so many men don't even know what to call what they're feeling, how to label that thing inside of them that's making them uncomfortable. So if you were one of those men who didn't learn what emotions are and have always been taught to push them under the carpet or run away from them, basically not even noticing them, how would you process your emotions after your cave time?
Okay, so very good, really practical question. There's so many layers to all this. And first of all, I do not see any difference in the ability of men or women to be in touch with their emotions. And my experience of 50 years of doing this is women are way less in touch with their emotions than men. I tell you this, right now, try to process a woman about what she's frustrated about, what her disappointments are, what her worries and concerns are, what she's afraid of, and have her share that with me. Nope, unless I ask her to tell me about your feelings with your husband. See, the destruction of relationships is the woman who comes on stage and I say, "Can you tell me about some things in your life that are upsetting to you?" And she says, "I have a perfect life. I have a wonderful life." I said, "Really? What do you do?" "I own 5 restaurants." Okay. "You manage them all yourself?" "Yes, yes." Is it stressful? "Well, it's just what it is." "Are we going to, are you getting enough clients now?" "Well, we're having to fire some people." Is that distressing to you?" "Well, it's what you have to do. It's what you have to do." You see, she's handling the stress in her life like a man.
Like a man. That's a masculine position. I was going to say that.
Exactly. Just like a man. Nothing you can do about it. "Well, forget it. Well, I did this. We have to do it. Well, I wish I could do better, but I can't do it." See, it's like no problem is masculinity. Problem is femininity. Okay. Problem is femininity. Go back just for a little context here, evolutionary wise, when women were more vulnerable than they are today, where they're pregnant and they're breastfeeding their kids. And you have got men who are the guards and men take care of you and all that stuff. It's a dangerous world. And you're living out in the wild. You don't have police. You don't have alarm systems. You're in the dark and you're outside getting some water and you see a tiger and you're a woman. Your stress level goes up. Now, what do you have to do? You got to go tell somebody. You're not going to fight that tiger off yourself. You're going to go tell somebody. So when you're stressed, you need to talk. And there's actually science that shows that when women under cortisol, and 8 times more blood flow goes to the talking part of the brain. For men, it doesn't. When men are, you're going to go tell the men, and the men are all going to get together in a team, and they're going to go handle that for you. So you feel safe. Well, now you're the team. You're on your male side. You're going to go do it. So you never get to experience that feminine part of you that can make babies, for example. That's estrogen. Can't make babies if your estrogen levels are not peaking out. Anyway, so back to, forgot the question. I wanted to.
Yes. I was talking about
what to do with the men. Okay, what to do with men. Okay, so first of all, you said men, and clearly in a therapy session, if a woman pays for therapy, she's willing to go and talk. But what she'll typically do is just talk about problems. She'll just talk about problems, and maybe she'll have some sort of emotional response. Okay, if it's a big deal, and she has to make something a really big deal in order to cry about it, as opposed to, a little thing. What you want is little things to evoke real responses inside and then let it go. You want to be emotional. Boys, just to know how boys develop, from age 2 to 13, a boy's estrogen levels are similar to a girl's. So therefore, almost all of his emotional stuff that we've stuffed is from that period of time. Then it's very healthy for a male after 13 to build his testosterone up. And so you talked about boys didn't get a chance to talk about their feelings and whatever. That's a bad thing if they're from age 2 to 13. And never should you be shamed for anything, but there's a direction to take you. If you coddle a little boy who's already more on his female side, and I'll say this is why there's so much confusion around gender right now, is the more spiritual we are and the light's coming in, the light coming in gives you access to both your male and female sides. That's why women in the 60s, when it all started happening, the Beatles, and they're having orgasms, the Beatles, it was like crazy screaming and all that stuff. This is a huge, big release of energy coming into the planet. And women were like, okay, the 60s, we're going to go out there and take over the world. We're going to run the companies. We're going to get through the glass ceiling. We're going to complain our way to the top. Okay, so they're over there on that left side, not all doing that. Some very constructive. But they're on their male side. They're like a young teenage guy going, I'm going to take on the world. They went to their male side. And we guys, me included, grew my hair out, girls' hair, long hair. Wore bell-bottom pants, got into fashion a bit, looking hippie and everything. Free sex. You didn't have to wait to have sex. You didn't have any discipline about sex. You just had sex with whoever would have it with you. It's just like completely irresponsible behavior. Also, I'm from Texas. Texas, we go to war, we're battlemen. No, I'm not going to shoot that deer again. No way. I'm going to demonstrate for peace. I would not go to Vietnam. So I'm all going to my female side. It was great. It was ecstatic. It was an amazing time. Because if you're stuck over on your male and you get to taste your female side, it feels really good. And now you're addicted to it. Yes. Males are addicted to their female side. And what they need is male role models to help them find their masculinity. Otherwise, they don't know their male. Same thing for women. Women don't know their female. They're so disconnected. Half the women today don't even want to get married or have babies. They don't want to have babies. They'd rather have some big career and then be depressed at 55 years old, menopausal and all that. What happened to femininity? And I'm not saying every woman has to have babies. She has to create something. That's a creative thing, but she has to love it. And she has to have love. She has to have passion. She has to have orgasms. This is part of femininity. And it's being lost. Because women are too far on their male side, men are too far on their female side. So what is this porn thing? It's just so disgusting to think of these guys, their testosterone levels at 20 years old are 20% lower than the average male 20 years ago. This is a devastating thing. The average male today at 35, in a different generation, it goes down every year to where at 50, it's half the testosterone levels. Mine, I'm 70 years old, I'm 50% higher than when I was as a young man, 50% higher. We go more masculine as long as you have love. Now, these boys who don't know their feelings, by the way, I know exactly where that comes from. It doesn't just come from telling little boys they can't cry. In some cases, that's the whole thing. It comes from mothers who can't cry. You see, the way a boy finds his feminine side, just as the way a man finds his feminine side, is through a woman's love. Mm-hmm. When I can feel the need for her love and connect with her, that awakens the feminine side in me. So men have a journey. You can just go over to your female side, which feels so good. Okay. It's so wonderful to be a woman and feel safe and loved and cared for and have lots of money. Okay. Go over to your female side. This is why guys like me who've done it in life, they want to retire. I can't retire. I just go over to my female side and die. My testosterone would go down. But one of the key things is what I learned, which was so helpful, a big motivator, is the research in Japan showed that when men ejaculate, their testosterone hits a peak during sex, and then they ejaculate, their estrogen goes up, and the next day their testosterone goes down to baseline. That's why they say if you masturbate, it doesn't lower your testosterone. That's right, it doesn't. It keeps you at baseline. And then you go for 6 days.
You're just there all the time. It never goes up.
Never goes higher. So what happens if you stay at baseline for 6 days, if you're a man, this is proven now with studies measuring hormones, 6 days, no ejaculating. On the 7th day, you wake up, your testosterone levels will be 50% higher. Now mine are 50% higher all the time because I never ejaculate. But I have sex. You have to have sex as well. Knocks it up. You have to be multi-orgasmic male. Fantastic. And I don't have to do it every day to keep it up. I just have to make sure I don't ejaculate. Occasionally, this year I ejaculated once. I went down to baseline, which wasn't that low, but it was definitely a difference from being 50% higher. For me, testosterone's only gone up as I practice these techniques to be set 50% higher all the time than I used to be as a young person. The average male today, and this is average, not everybody, okay, but this is the average, it's a bell curve. The average male in America has 50% of his testosterone level when he was a young man, when he's 50. That's why you see Viagra commercial. You do not need Viagra. This is insanity. What happened to power? And then women we're so powerful. Whatever happened to happiness and love? We're missing it. And part of the craziness of today is everything is up is down is up. We're backwards. Everything is backwards. What is true is seen as a lie. Clean Air Act is actually more pollution. Oh, it's crazy.
I was gonna go deeper. I know you don't have much time probably, but that I feel is important. That you have quite clear advice, for how to balance the hormones and how to basically navigate this gender crisis that's not happening, that people are so confused and don't know how to act on it. But what happens when you go deeper, for example, in a tantric relationship, and where the energy is much higher and you basically circulate much larger amounts of energy through your whole system, and you activate all the chakras, and you activate basically all the patterns and all the stuff that is stuffed in you at a much higher level, you know, and then it's not only your stuff that you're dealing with. Sometimes you're dealing with transgenerational patterns. Sometimes you're dealing with, you know, karmic bonds that are way beyond your understanding, that come from other lifetimes where you've been with the same person. Maybe you've killed them or did wrong to them. You know, how do you, I mean, I've experienced that. I'm being a tantrika for innumerable years now. How do you navigate that kind of stuff?
Well, again, that if you're practicing tantra and conscious sex, however anybody wants to call it, making love again and again, that when the stuff comes up, it's coming right back to the simplicity of what I'm teaching. When your stuff comes up, there's a tendency to blame your partner. There's a tendency to complain about your partner. There's that woman who processed all her feelings by just saying, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Everything's okay. And you could be a very spiritual person doing the same thing. It's like, hey, nothing you can do. It's God's will. You know, this is the old thing. This is what kept people's emotions down, which is, you know, God's will. Let it be. Let it be. You can't change anything. It's destiny. God will take care of it. God will take care of it through you and through us. You know, we're here to do God's will. But having said that, there's all these mechanisms where people suppress. As soon as you're having tantric lovemaking, you know, tantrika and the man, you're going to bring up stuff. And when that stuff comes up, if you're a woman, you need to be able to process those emotions. And if you're a man, stuff comes up, it means you have to process your emotions too. The difference for men is that they first need to go to their testosterone side to rebuild their testosterone. Then they need to process their emotions the same way a woman would process her emotions. It's just that for women, when they're stressed, they should go right to just processing emotions and then come back as they've explored them to recognizing logically, this was irrational. Logically, how did I contribute to this problem? And then logically, how can I solve the problems in my life? Okay, then she's going from her estrogen side back to her testosterone side. Now, if she doesn't have that knowledge of how to take responsibility and then how to change appropriately what you can change and know what you can't change, you know, that's the whole thing. It's like certain things you can't change, be happy with that. And knowing what you can change and having the courage to do that. You know, that was a serenity prayer and AA, beautiful prayer. So you come back to that place, but coming back to that place is never, ever feeling like a victim. See, that's the problem. See, all negative emotions are victim emotions. They're saying, you did this to me. You affected me. A negative emotion and a positive emotion as well is, you did this to me. You made me feel so good. I feel so great because of this.
You give away your power. You give away your power to the partner or another person who is able to change your state. You know,
all negativity is giving away your power. You know, particularly you're giving away the power of your female side. I talk about two types of power. One is the power to accomplish and achieve, to be, you know, to have, you know, I have male power. Okay, I'm disciplined. I do what I say I do. I have integrity. I stand up for what's true for me. I don't lie. All those things are all part of my masculinity. And I do the things that are difficult, and I challenge myself, and I listen to my soul, and I do it. See, these are all masculine qualities. Feminine qualities are I enjoy my life. I do what I like to do. I don't have to do anything. God's will comes through me. The universe supports me in everything I do. It's just like, it's a vacation. Life's a vacation. So I have to have both those things together. And before you can integrate them simultaneously, you can sort of go back and forth. You go from one to the other, and gradually you will start as a woman having your masculine side with responsibilities, and you won't feel stressed because you'll have the non-stressed female side of you, which is happy and feeling loving and supportive, and your life is in balance. So how do you process those emotions of the guys? Because I didn't answer that question. So the fact that he's even coming to you means he's already on his male side because he's paying you for his services. Okay, so we're here to solve a problem. Okay, I'm problem solving. Then you can basically focus on, okay, well, are you feeling stressed? When you're feeling stressed, he's not aware of what his feelings are. What you can then do is a series of questions. It's the same feeling letter questions. And more sophisticated techniques are in my book, Mars, Venus starting over. Because usually when a marriage ends or a death or some shock happens to you and you're a man, you have the doorway opens and you grieve. It has to be something big, usually cracks a man open. Then these are the skills for men particularly, is to look at what you're feeling right now, the levels of it, go through your anger, your sadness, disappointment, your fears, your concerns, your worries, your embarrassment, your guilt, your shame, your regrets. So you have levels. Those levels are all just, all you have to do is ask somebody, now tell me what you feel about this and tell me what you're afraid of. And I don't know. And then think about it. What are you afraid of? Look a little deeper, look a little deeper. So he looks a little deeper. Now, what you do, what I always do with everybody, with women or men, they don't know what they feel. I tell them. I said, well, you're afraid of this, aren't you? And you're afraid of this, aren't you? And they, yeah, that's just what I feel. So I have to act out all their feelings for them at every level. And they go, yeah, that's what I feel. I said, so now say it. Now say it and say it and say it. And they start learning. It's like learning how to speak. Now that's if they're coming to you and you're a woman, you can do this quite wonderfully because you're more in touch with the emotions. You can say, well, feel this, you feel this, you feel this. Then you get in touch with, okay, what are you happy about? What are you grateful for? What makes you feel safe? What do you love? And what are you proud of? So that's a processing. Now, for men, you have to go a step further. And with women, you can as well. But for men, it's necessary to, there's a pain point in there where you actually can start feeling some emotion. There's sort of a release happening. And it can happen at any of the 4 levels. You kind of go, they really are feeling it, and they're like, you can feel that they got to the pain point. Now you say, let's identify the pain point. Pain point is something like, I just feel I have to do it myself. I can't do it alone. Nobody supports me. I'm all by myself. And bang, once you get to the pain point, then you take him into his childhood. You take him back to 2 years to 13 years old, because that's where he stuffed all his trauma. You see, for women, they stuff it then and they stuff it every day. It's your estrogen being, you're always suppressing. Ultimately, you want to bring it back to those early years for the deep programming and the changing it. But for a man, you don't want to dwell so much in crying about, I'm not good at my job. Nobody likes me. You get in touch with what the concern is, what the fear is. And then when did you feel this way when you were growing up? Did you feel this way as a teenager? Did you feel this way as a kid growing up? And gradually you just start going back into the past. That's called timeline therapy. Timeline therapy is very important to men because really it's during those 10 years when men's Can you hear me? I think I'm live on YouTube, but I just disconnected. It's a pleasure to spend this time with all of you. And I'll just finish up that thought. Is particularly for men is to look at what's bothering you now. Again, the 90-10 principle is the recognition that 90% of what's bothering me is my past. And so he needs to process it the feelings as if he was a child, and you're helping him process through it. That's very helpful for men to get out of the space that right now what's happening in my life is rationally the reason for what I feel. It's just a trigger for what you're feeling deep inside. And for women, rationally right now, these are all triggers, but then she can go deeper and then go deeper and deeper and deeper. But for often, just for the stresses of the day, we're not talking about going to a therapist because you're depressed or you're anxious or whatever, just learning to create intimacy in a relationship. It's about strengthening masculinity by letting him be present for you as you go deeper into your emotions, and takes challenge. This is a new skill for people, but when you can do that, and you can then avoid all arguments. Once you get in arguments because somebody complaining about the other person, stop talking, take your space. He has to go to his cave. She has to go talk to friends, go hang out, do something she loves doing. She's got all these other ways to connect other than with him. And then she can freely connect with him without a neediness. And then he can freely come back to her without feeling he's being blamed for pulling away. These are some of the basic ideas of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, as well as a more updated version of that is in my book, Beyond Mars and Venus over there. And once again, I have good tips for dating, Mars, Venus on a date. We have Mars, Venus starting over when your deep pain comes up. Boy, that's powerful information For those who want to manifest their desires, achieve great success, processing removes the blocks to receive it and to create it. I talk about that in my book, How to Get What You Want and Want What You Have. For parents, how to raise your children to be more enlightened and more cooperative, yet confident and not needy, not overly sensitive, but also high self-esteem. That's called Children Are From Heaven. A better happiness in the workplace. I've got Mars, Venus in the workplace, like looking at a book over there called Conscious Men. And that one is helping, women are always asking me, where are the conscious men? I say, read this book, you'll find it. And also helping men to become more conscious, more successful in the relationship, the obstacles to being successful. My book, Mars, Venus in the Bedroom, the basics of great sex on a regular basis for your partner. These are all important things. If you have boys, I've written a book called The Boy Crisis with Warren Farrell. With Conscious Men, I wrote with another author, Arjuna. And I've got my feminist book I wrote with a feminist author talking about the challenges in the workplace called Mars, Venus. It's called Work With Me. I've got a book on ADD. ADD shows up in men and women differently. The cures are different. For men, the ADD is hyper focused. It's not like attention deficit. It's like I don't have attention for things unless they're high dopamine stimulating. Take a kid who can't listen to a boring teacher, put him on a video game, and they'll have complete focus. But for women, that's ADD. He'll focus on things that produce addictive type things. For women, they're addicted to problems. They just see problems everywhere. They can't let go of it. This, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. So that's the ADD problem for women, is feeling overwhelmed. We have all the hormonal stress. We've got, I'm just looking through my various books there. Those are the key ones you should start with. We have a free class at marsvenus.com, how to get everything you want in your relationships. A great course for women only, which I recommend to every woman if you want to learn how to get a man to love you more. And when I talk about don't try to change your partner, don't use negative emotion to change your partner. Use your love to change your partner. They want to change. You see, it's freedom, no control. It will always bring out the best in your partner. Learning how to ask for support, learning how to set boundaries, learning how to take time for yourself, learning how to reconnect rather than being too needy with him. All these are challenges that we need help with today. Because often when women are on their male side, when they do get on their female side, it's just overwhelming. It's too much. They become all needy. They become a little crazy. So we're all a little crazy. I talked about women's irrational feelings. The emotions become irrational. If you're upset about things, they're all irrational. You can look at it like, oh, you did that to me. Or you can look at, oh, you triggered my own feelings of insecurity. And I have a way to handle that and come back to feeling good about myself. And then how do I solve the problem in the outer world? I'm not talking about passive approach. I'm talking about be responsible for your garbage. It's your own stuff. Be the best person you can be. Come to marsvenus.com. You can certainly learn more. I want to thank you all for listening today.